All right, welcome back to the RetroCult Podcast. I'm your host, Chuck, and I'm here with Mac, our other host. Mac, what's going on?
Not much, Chuck. How are you doing?
Doing all right, man. It was a fast week at school. I know with third quarter coming to a close, I think this is the last full week of the quarter, heading into fourth quarter. And so work's been wild. Didn't get to do a whole lot of looking and searching. I did find you a pretty cool book. I sent you some pictures of that Star Trek book today. I'm looking forward to getting that to you. Found a cool few things for Laura, but nothing crazy this week. I spent most of the day today and yesterday in the house just working on the toy room and getting things cleared up to try to go to that toy show at Crazy Cool Collectibles in Warsaw in the little bit later here in March.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah, and from what I can see, the room looks great. I can see your firehouse behind you
Yeah,
and some of the GI Joe s- stuff that
yeah. She's
yeah,
put
it's
up a
really
few things for lunch boxes and stuff. It's fun, man. It's a lot of
yeah.
fun coming in here and putting those things up.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I need to get back to organizing my toy collection, but things are finally starting to kind of get to normal at work after our move to a new office. And so I had most of my fun was had at my office setting it up.
Yeah, I have
Um,
written down here that I love the way your office looks. That poster is
yeah, the
perfectly
poster,
framed.
yeah, the poster looks great. The Star Wars poster looks great. I've actually taken a couple of top loaders with some command Velcros and hung a few comics
I saw some
up
of
on
that.
the
It looks
wall.
awesome.
So I may have to do a few more of those. I definitely want to, but it's a work in progress. I'm there to work, but me, I love showing off my hobbies when I'm at work and stuff. So and it's gotten some good feedback from my coworkers, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I just forgot about this. We went to get the some dog food for Sherlock, and we ended up out in Clemens, and so I stopped by the Five Below there, and I think I found all but one of the little mini Mad Balls that have been re-released.
Oh, nice,
Yeah, they're
nice.
a dollar a piece too. I mean, I
Yeah.
thought they were gonna be $5 a piece, but they're not. They're a dollar a piece, but all the old guys are buying them all, so it was kinda fun to find 'em, but I think that's a very seldom shopped Five Below as compared to the mall.
Yes, yeah, I didn't even know there was one out that way. There's one down the road from where we live at on off of University Parkway.
That's the
Um,
only one I haven't been to check yet to see if they have any
well,
of
if
the
I if
others.
I if I could go by there one day, it's easy enough for me to get off at Germantown Road and go there, and I can check. Just let me know which one you're missing,
I'll
and
have
I
to
will
do
go
that
there and
after the
have a
show.
look. Cause I go there, I find neat stuff all the time. There, I found a few months ago, this isn't retro per se, but Laura and I are big fans of Bob's Burgers, and uh, Culture Fly has done a series of little PVC statues of the whole family. And I got her those. And then we were at Walmart yesterday and they've apparently repackaged the exact same figure because at Five Below, they're just in little simple boxes. But at Walmart, they're actually on a blister card and they come with a more elaborate base and have a background behind them. And the only two that, according to the back of the packaging, the only two are Bob and Tina at this point. But I'm hoping they end up doing the whole family with this. So I'm swapping those out. I ended up getting those for her, the Bob one yesterday for her. So I'm taking the regular one to work. So that'll be added to my collection at work.
Oh, yeah, that'll be nice.
But I love going to, Five Below, Dollar General, Dollar Tree. I love looking, um I actually have an entire box of dollar store toys that I have just been collecting over the past few years. I actually think I started the box in, like, 2021 because we were at Dollar Tree and found that they have little PVC statuettes of the Transformers. Then over the years, they've done different DC characters. Um, I think they have a GI Joe line. I think I ended up getting some of those. So I've ended up compiling a whole box of dollar store toys and I think I wanna I it's kind of been on my plan to do a video of that. Our listeners are probably getting tired of me always talking about the videos I plan to do, and then, considering that then no videos come out, but I will get, like I said, that's one of the things I'm working on right now. It's just been kind of a hectic start to the year, and so my plan is to try and get back on, a schedule with releasing at least 1 or 2 videos a week if I can, because I think I'm gonna the problem I had with keeping to a schedule last year was just my videos just go too long. And I want to, I need to figure out how to pare them down to maybe about a 30-minute runtime. That seems about reasonable for me.
Yeah, that was me too. I think, trying to pare down all the film from the antique
Yeah.
shops or toy stores that I went to,
Yeah.
and then put in what I found, just it took up way too much time,
Yeah.
for
Well,
me.
and another thing is I'm just not a good very, very good video editor yet. I'm still trying to learn how to do it. And so I end up going down too many rabbit holes just trying to figure out how to edit the video so it looks good. So,
Yeah.
so that always ends up so whatever time it actually takes me to film the video, just double that for how long it's gonna take me to edit the thing. So maybe one day, as the channel grows, maybe we'll actually be able to hire an editor at some point. Because 'cause I'll be honest, that's not my favorite part of doing this.
It's not mine, and most of the people that I listen to, I think that's the one thing, other than Matt Pruitt with the Bigfoot show I listen to, he really seems to enjoy the editing process, but most people, that's their least favorite. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up going to, like, Dollar Tree and Dollar General because that's kind of what I was wanting to talk about today anyway. I remember when I would stay with my aunt or I would stay with my grandma, in the summer times when I would go to up to my dad's, that was we would always take a trip to, like, Family Dollar or the dollar store there in
Yep.
Walnut Cove, and, that's where, I would pick up a toy or something on the weekends, and they typically carry, your Star Wars and G.I. Joe action figures and stuff. They may have them rarely, but then they were, like, so overpriced. So I would end up buying a lot of things that I don't wanna say that they were unpopular, but they were just maybe not as popular as some of the other things, that people were buying at the time. I know that I had, like, quite a collection of the Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos action figures.
Mhm.
Um, and then at the same place, we would go by the drugstore to get my, either my great grandma or my aunt's medicine, and they had a spinner rack there. And it seemed like I was able to always get, I mean, I had Chuck Norris and the Karate Commandos comic books, or if I had just picked up a Visionaries action figure, I could get Visionaries comic books. And so I always tend to tie in my cartoon, my comics, and my toys all in at the same time. And it's just I picked up some really unique things, and I thought it'd be fun tonight to talk about more obscure lines of toys and more obscure comic book lines that came out, back when we were growing up
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, we can that's a great topic because, uh, I guess in this age, you we don't really have rack toys in the same way we did when we were kids, and I know I'm older than you, uh, by a bit, so I remember, like, rack toys when I was a kid. It really wasn't even like a Family Dollar kinda thing, like, there were a lot of those at Family Dollar, but even like your Zayres, your Roses, your bigger department stores, they would always have a rack toy section, and they were those I could generally get at least something because they were relatively cheaper, they were more cheaply made, and, when I was growing up, there was a lot of branded, merchandise there, like a lot of Spider-Man, a lot of Star Trek, even some Space 1999. That's where I actually still have I think I've mentioned this before, when we were talking about Space 1999, but I actually still have, my water gun that looks like the stun gun that they have in the show. And I know that came from Zayres. That came out of Zayres. It was on the rack toy, that you would buy as you were standing in the line waiting. Whereas now, most places I go, the only toys I ever see that are like in the checkout lane are generally Hot Wheels, maybe a couple of cars, nothing like what we used to have. Like, because like I said, I ended up with uh, another toy I would love to get. They're really hard to find because they were just so cheaply made. They worked for maybe 3 uses. Was the Amazing Spider-Man web shooter?
Yeah, you
Uh,
talk about that a
yeah,
lot.
I would love to find one of those on the card. I've actually seen them both on videos of some of the guys we like to watch do toy hunts. I actually did see one. The last time I saw one in person, I believe, was at the Winston-Salem Toy Show that we went to last May.
Yep.
And I actually did end up buying some stuff from the guy because he had a lot of Spider-Man rack toys. And so I ended up, uh, and Superman, because I ended up with that cardboard articulated Superman puppet thing. That was really cool. The Spider-Man water gun. He had one of those still on the card, and he was asking a reasonable price. The Spider-Man web shooter is still on the card. They're never a reasonable price when I see those. Because like I said, I remember having quite a few of those as a kid. It was literally just a suction cup dart shooter with a little string, and once you shot it, you could never wind that string back up exactly right to get it to shoot again.
Yeah, I remember having that. I know my dad, he had a gas station and he had some rack toys right
Oh, see,
in the
that would have
back.
been great. Yeah, you had
And
the
so
source.
I
Yeah.
did, but he honestly, there was nothing. I know, like, I remember getting some Incredible Hulk stuff. You know, the little puzzles where like the little cubes would move around.
Mhm.
I
Oh,
I
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
uh, all of those, any of those that had comics, I had all of those. I wish I still had those. But like it was a lot of Pink Panther and other like I don't say not popular
Yeah.
cartoons, just stuff that I wasn't that interested in because
At
I was
the
more into the action heroes.
It's funny you mention that. At the Comic-Con last week, one of the things that, we ran across was one of the dealers had a Superpowers branded one of those little sliding
Oh
puzzles,
man, yeah,
and, it was Batman. It was very cool, still on the card, but way expensive. Like, it was like $100 or something, and I
that's just
mean,
too much, man.
that's me. I'm like, it's still just a little sliding puzzle piece of plastic. I'd love to
Yeah,
have that, but I can't justify spending that amount. But I get it because that's the thing that's, uh, you know, the guys at Pod Stallion, great podcast. Any of our listeners, if you haven't, check them out. They have a great podcast and YouTube channel, but they do whole episodes about rack toys. They're big rack toy collectors. And the thing that's really hard about collecting those old rack toys is just that they were played with. They got ripped open, and they weren't no one ever not or obviously not many people ever thought, "Oh, this is something I'd like to hold on to." Like the
yeah,
Spider-Man web shooters. When I was a kid, I would use it as much as I could. It would eventually stop working. I'd stop playing with it, and my mom throws it away during a house cleaning. So that's just how that goes. Well, because of that now, those things are really rare and expensive, especially if you want them like in on the package. Because even back then, the packaging was ultra cheap. The Spider-Man water gun I bought in Winston last year, the funny thing is like they usually have some kind of knockoff artwork, which still can be very cool on the front, but most of the time the back is just plain cardboard.
yeah, yeah.
There's
There's
no
nothing on the
back
back.
art at all. But
Yeah,
but back to your point about the, dollar stores and stuff like that, I kind of feel like those are the modern successors to rack toys. Rack toys don't really exist as much or at all in the way I remember them from my childhood. And I do feel like going to Dollar General, Dollar Tree, even Five Below is kind of scratching that itch a little bit because I do find neat stuff. And at Dollar Tree, they're still generally about a buck 25 for whatever you find. They even have their own brand of Legos. And a few years ago, I'm trying to remember when it started. It had to have been around 20. It might have even been earlier than 2020. I thought it was a very cool thing to see Dollar Tree. They actually did their own line of action figures. They built like a whole universe. There's a YouTube cartoon, and it's these like it's like futuristic soldiers versus aliens, but there's a whole story behind it. They made their own vehicles, and they were a lot like the old. Do you remember the Centurions toy line?
Dude, I
What
oh my god, dude, I love those things, man.
Well, this toy line is very similar to that in that all the figures had these holes, like in the shoulders, the hips, stuff like that, and you can buy armor packs and weapon packs and snap armor onto all of them. It reminded me a lot of the Centurions.
Yeah, I
Same thing
love the
with the
Centurions,
vehicles.
man.
Yeah. But they're actually, for a little while, that became kind of a hot thing on YouTube. People were buying those figures and showing you because they were actually relatively well made, and this was back before the inflation kicked in. Because when they first came out, they were still literally a dollar for each figure. The vehicles were a dollar. It was I didn't buy any, and I kinda kicked myself for not I still see them at Dollar Tree, but there are some I've noticed. I don't think it's still going, like, I don't think Dollar Tree's still making them, and there are certain of the good guy characters, especially, that have just disappeared. I still see the villains a lot, uh, because and that makes sense because at a price point like that, you could really lean into buying your kid, like, letting your kid become an army builder with the
Yeah, I
bad
mean, for a
guys. Yeah.
dollar, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, yeah, so it's fun to see stuff like that. I wish more companies would lean into that, but, it is what it is. They've gotta make a dollar, they gotta make a profit at the end of the
It
day.
stinks they didn't make a comic book to go along with that.
They did.
Oh, they
They did,
did?
and
Oh, wow.
as far as I know, there's only been 1 issue, and I have multiple copies. I thought I had given you one already. I'll definitely give you one.
Yeah, I don't think
'Cause
I have that. I would love to see that. That sounds really cool because
yeah,
that's
there's a and they had a cartoon on YouTube
you
too.
see,
I'll
that
have
I
to
would have
look that
missed.
up and send you a link, but it was kinda like a GI Joe,
Yeah,
sci-fi GI Joe, uh, kinda universe.
that's wild, man. Yeah, I hate that that didn't take off for them a little bit more than it did. That's kind of a bummer, but yeah, I mean, there were so many just random, toy lines that I would pick up. I mean, I have written down here like, Crystar the Crystal Warrior. Had
Oh,
a
yeah.
had a
Oh, yeah.
comic book line too,
Also a comic book line, yeah.
but I mean, for you, translucent, like all the good guys are translucent in that one.
Yeah,
So I
and
mean,
I'm a sucker for any figure that's translucent.
oh man, absolutely. But I mean, that was just a
The
great
the
line.
only thing that can make it better is if the translucent also glows in the dark.
Yeah, hey, speaking of glow in the dark, way off topic. I've been plugging a lot of things into Chat GPT to try to figure out how to fill up that jar. Um,
Okay, alright,
and so,
what have you
yeah,
landed on?
well, I mean, right now I'm still thinking. So I thought even about those mad balls from, Five Below for a dollar a piece, but after putting in the dimensions of the jar and how big they are, I would need over 500. So it'd be a
Okay.
500 something dollar jar. I'm not
Y
spending that. Muscle Men was like, I think it's like 1200 Muscle Men. And so at 2 for 5 at the best, I've seen them at Collectors Confluence, that's still, in that $700 range. But, it did recommend, glow in the dark, um, army figures, the plastic army figures.
Yeah, you know what? While you were just talking, the thing that popped in my head was, what about the cheap little army men that we
Yeah.
used to play with as kids? Because they usually came in a bag of about 100
Now see,
or
those
more.
I think I could do it, but I
Yeah.
think having if I could get something glow in the dark in there would be even cooler.
Yeah, I didn't know they made glow in the darks
They
on
do make
those.
some that glow in the dark. So, yeah, Chat GPT, it's so weird. That whole conversation has morphed into this weird thing. Anytime that I get on there, it's sending me all this stuff. It's like, what do you think about this? I've been thinking about it. I think you would really like this idea. Or, have you settled on an idea? And it's pretty wild how it's almost having like a conversation like you would with a person, but it's really thinking about ways to fill it up and, trying to find ways to save as much money as possible. I still have no idea what I'm gonna do, and like I said, it's the jar is not going anywhere. Whatever it ends up getting filled up with, it gets filled up with. If I you know, if I find a bag of 1,000 muscle men at a yard sale this summer, then obviously that's what's gonna go in there, but I'm not gonna hold my breath.
Yeah, I I'm trying to think. I know that they used to also, besides just army men, I know that they okay, so we had your standard army men. Okay, but then you could occasionally find I know I had some of the cavemen, like cavemen,
Yeah.
and they're the same type of cheap plastic little army men. Um, I think they were like cavemen's versus dinosaurs because they actually had dinosaurs. It'd be kinda cool is if you wanted to do something like that, would be not just army men, but we could start looking to see if we could find other types of little figures like that that are like, I know that I used to see the ads in the back of comics all the time for, the Romans versus barbarians one,
I had some ninjas when I was little.
and ninjas, yeah, yeah, see, maybe that would be the way to go too is, instead of just filling them, I mean, they would all be the same type. They're all, little molded plastic figures, but it'd be kinda cool if you could do World War II army men, maybe some Germans, you could do modern the more like, when I was a kid, most of the army men I had, they were, like, Vietnam era. They all had M16s and stuff like that, but I didn't care, they still fought the Germans, but then also do barbarians, knights. I'm pretty sure they made knight sets with those, and yeah, that'd be good. That'd be kind of fun to just try to and I don't know whether you'd wanna mix them all in, or I could also in my mind, I could envision you do the jar if you could fill it up so there's like a every layer
Yeah,
is
layer it would be
different.
kinda cool.
Yeah,
I don't
do the
know.
caveman at the bottom. It's like a
A
human
timeline of
history, yeah.
toys.
At the top, you get some of the old spacemen because they also did spacemen.
I did have some of those
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know, it's a work in progress. I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna do yet. It's there, it's in the back of my mind. I think, once if I hit a score of something and it fills up a good portion of the jar, then I'll just run with it. But for now, I'm listening and coming up with ideas. But and again, those are perfect kinds of toys that I would get at the dollar store, or off of a spinner rack because those bags of army men were
Oh,
super
no,
cheap.
that's a great example of that. That's how I'm sure I ended up all of those was just, you know, annoying my mom enough till she would spend the dollar to buy a bag, and, the bag usually had 100 or so in it, and then, I used to love to those were so much fun in that, uh my cousin and I would my cousin lived across the street from my grandmother, and that's where I generally stayed before I was old enough to stay by myself, and we would make elaborate battles because he would bring over all of his army men, I had my army men, and we would build huge elaborate battles in the living room, and then you go around with rubber bands trying to shoot the
Yeah,
guys down. That was so much fun. That was so
yeah.
much fun.
As speaking of cousins, I had a cousin that passed away, but every time that I went to his house, there was one toy that he had. And I'll be honest with you, it's a fairly obscure toy from an extremely popular company, and the company's Nerf. But do you remember Nerf Man?
I do not remember Nerf Man.
Alright, so Nerf Man was this green action figure, maybe I'm gonna say 12 inches tall, maybe a little shorter than that. He had a big, like, yellow cape, and you could, like, sling him like maybe like an airplane or something. And he would fly because he was as light as could be built out of Nerf, and the cape would kinda help him glide along. And then obviously in the house, he would bump into something and it wouldn't break anything because it's Nerf. That's one toy. Oh my god, if I could find one of those to just put it aside and have it sitting on a shelf somewhere because and it
That is
has to be.
that has gotta be fairly obscure because I have never heard of Nerf
I can't
Man.
wait for you to look him up because 'cause you're gonna
Yeah.
see him and you're gonna go, "Yeah, I need one of those."
Yeah, well, I could see that. I remember, my, speaking of my cousin David, um he always had he had the Stretch Armstrong
Oh, yeah, those
figure,
are
and
so cool.
I never had Stretch Armstrong. Looking back at it now, I really do think I don't see the appeal of the toy. I mean, I'm like, how would I not get bored with this after 5 minutes? But we had a lot of fun with that thing. We had a ton of fun, and the Stretch Armstrong monster. I was watching
Oh my
the
god, yeah, that
Zolocon. I was watching the Zolocon
wow.
footage, and the head alone was selling for $200.
Yeah, I think that was probably on, Pawn Stars, one of my favorite episodes is the head comes in, and Chumley, who is like I don't know if you've ever watched Pawn
Yeah, I
Stars.
have. Yeah, yeah,
So
I know
he's like the
Chumley.
resident moron apparently, but, like, he's really not when it comes to toys and comics and stuff, and he bought that head, and they were so mad, and they're like, "This is worth nothing," and the toy guy comes in, he's like, "Dude, that is, like, an absolute grail." He's like, "You're gonna have no problem getting, X amount of money." And
Yeah.
Shelby's just standing there like, "I told you, like, I'm not an idiot."
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that would be one to have. But no, he had Stretch Armstrong too, and like that is one of those. It was a lot of fun to play with. I don't know if I'd have ever gotten bored with him or not, man, because I'd have probably had him. I'd have treated him like Plastic Man or something with my He-Man or something.
Well, talking about these army builder sets, I'm gonna reach over into the magic portal over here and pull this out. I just so happen to have this. I found these a couple of years ago. These are Star Trek army builder sets.
Oh wow, that's
So
cool.
they're the molded plastic
Yep,
figures, and I have this is the original series one. I hate it. I'm sorry the glare is
that's
so
fine. Yeah,
bad.
the glare in
But
my
as
house
you
is
can
terrible
see, it
too.
actually comes with the Enterprise.
That's sick,
But
man.
then it's got, Captain Kirk, it's got all the main characters plus a Gorn and a Romulan.
Nice.
Uh, and then I also have the Next Generation one, which
Man, I've
has the
never. Where'd
Enterprise
you
D.
find that?
I I will be honest, I think I found these at a comic show that we went to in Durham. I wanna say it was the show put on by Ultimate Comics. Oh, yeah, there's the back, you can actually see all the figures it comes with. You
Man,
get a
those are
good assortment of villains and the main cast and
that
everything.
reminds me of that bag of randomness I found at McKay's that had all of those, Doctor Who in it.
Yeah, yeah, see, this would be great, this would be a great Doctor Who thing too. But, uh but yeah, I found those I wanna say it was a comic show in Durham. It had to have been around 21 or 22. And we were at a comic show, in Durham, and I ran across that because there was one guy there, he had tons of Star Trek stuff, like all the Eagle Moss ships, but he had these. He had the McFarlane action figures, like, McFarlane literally had the Star Trek license for about that long, and he managed to pump out a Kirk figure and a Picard figure, and I ended up getting both of those, and on the back of the card, it shows like other toys that McFarlane was planning on making, like they were gonna do a phaser, like an original series phaser, they were gonna do a Discovery phaser, they were gonna do, yeah, kind of cool stuff, they were gonna do ships and everything, and honestly, I don't think he had the license for a whole year before he lost it, and now Nacelle has it, and they are doing some really interesting stuff with Star Trek. Like, they're doing, the first wave of their figures I believe has already dropped. I haven't seen them in person yet, and if they haven't dropped, they're dropping very soon. The thing I like that Nacelle is doing is they're really nicely detailed figures, but they're doing figures that have never been done before, because, Playmates had the license for so long. They did so many variants, versions of all the different Star Trek shows, but there were certain characters that just never got made, and that's what Nacelle is literally starting with. They're literally starting with Rachel Garrett, the captain of the Enterprise C. She's getting a figure. Captain Jellicoe from one of the best, episodes of Next Generation, he's getting a figure. Um, so anyway, I do like what they're doing. I'm hoping they're also gonna do some ships because 'cause I'm a sucker for spaceships. So yeah, at some point, we'll have to rearrange the camera so I can show my shipyard. with all my ships. But it's funny we were talking about the Army men. As soon as I heard that, I was texting Laura as fast as I could. Will you go upstairs and get the?
Yeah, those are pretty awesome, man. Well,
Yeah,
what are some
want to open them, but I kind of don't want to open them too.
I'd have to if I could find them online or somebody had some, I'd have to get some of those because those are pretty neat. What are some of the, like and we've talked a lot about off-brand toys that we got. What are some of the comics that you got that maybe weren't quite so mainstream?
Well, I'll be honest, that's a lot of what I collect now. I still collect, as you know, I still really love Superman and Batman. So I'm still trying to fill in gaps of my Bronze Age Superman action comics, Batman and Detective Comics, and so on. But I do love a good weird comic book. One of the ones that I remember, and I actually bought this, a complete run of this at Acme Comics probably 3 years ago, is there's a comic from a Marvel comic from the mid-70s called US 1, and it's literally about it was during that CB trucker craze of the '70s, a lot of people may not know what I'm talking about. If you're I would argue if you're under the age of 50, you're gonna have no clue what I'm talking about. But in the '70s, there was a period where there were lots of TV shows, movies about truckers, Smokey and the Bandit. You had uh, what was the one with Clint Eastwood? Every Which Way But Loose with the orangutan, but he was a truck driver. Um, s- uh, there was also a show on TV and I cannot the name of it escapes me, but it's about a trucker and he has a chimp that travels and they travel around the country. Typical formulaic '70s TV show. They just travel around the country and discover some shenanigans going on and get involved and help people. Um, so there was this big trucker craze in the '70s and with CBs and radios and everything. So Marvel had to get in on the act and they published a relatively short run. I think it went on for over a year called US 1. And that was kind of the basis. You're following this kid. Yeah. And of course, he's like a teenager, but he's driving around in his big semi truck around the country, fighting crime, solving mysteries, that kind of stuff. So that's a really weird one. And Acme is really great for putting complete runs together and selling them as sets. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I gotta have that. I don't even remember that from when I was a kid. And that just is so out there that I love it. I would say the other big one that I actively love, I have quite a few of them, are the Atlas Seaboard comics from the '70s. There is a great video on YouTube. I recommend everybody go check it out by Comic Tropes on the history of Atlas comics. Atlas the title of the video, I think, is the comic company founded to spite Marvel, and it literally was because it was founded by one of the founders of Marvel Comics. I think it's like his kid or grandkid, and there was like a change of leadership coming and they thought that he was gonna become the new editor in chief, and it didn't happen. And so he left the company, quit, and started his own comic company. And you can really tell if you look at any Atlas comics, it only lasted maybe a year. Most of the comic runs, I think the longest comic run they have lasted 4, 5 issues. Like, so it didn't last very long, but if you look at any of those and compare it to a Marvel comic from the same period, you could tell it has the same banner head across the top, where it used to say Marvel Comics Group. This would say Atlas Comics. The corner boxes were very similar. They were you could tell they were literally trying to just out Marvel, and it did not work at that, especially at that time.
Yeah, I remember
But
when you found that run, we were at that antique
oh
store,
yeah, yeah,
and you found that
exactly.
run. I think my favorite part about that is, like, you were you were telling me the history of Atlas, and there was, like, this older couple, like, shopping over to the right of us, and the guy says to his wife, like, that guy sure knows a whole lot about those comics. Like, 'cause you had gone on for a while about it
Yeah,
and
I
just kinda
can.
spout off the history, and I don't think he was trying to be mean. I think it was just like, "Holy
Oh,
cow,
no,
that
no,
guy was."
that's great. I don't take I take that as a compliment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
man.
love God, I can spout off on it. And, here's the sad thing about the Atlas comics is there are some like anything else, there are some stinkers, but for the most part, they were actually really intriguing, and then the ones I've read, like, I do not that's one of those I don't remember that from, being a kid because I think this was all around 75, 76. I was still only like 7, 7 or 8 at that time. Um, and it didn't last long. Like, it didn't last long enough. I'm not even sure I ever saw one. Like, I don't even know if they would have ever shown up at the Little General spinner rack in Burlington,
Yeah.
North Carolina. So, um, I don't remember it, but it's one of those things that when I discovered it as an adult, I was intrigued by it. For one thing, just Comic Tropes is actually the channel that introduced me to it because when I watched that video, I'm like, I gotta find these comics. This
Yeah.
sounds interesting. And he reviews some of them, and he even talks about, yeah, some of them are stinkers, but they're actually pretty good because that was the other thing. The guy actually hired away some of Marvel's best talent at the time to work on the book. So it really is one of those things that if the situation had been slightly different, I think this could have become a success, and it just the timing was wrong. I would argue his motivation for doing it is wrong, you know, just pure spite is generally not a good idea for undertaking anything. So, um, so anyway, yeah, it could have been great, and looking back at the comics now, um I just think it was a missed opportunity, and but I still have a fondness for those books. But those are really obscure. You're gonna yeah, even a lot of longtime comic readers may not have ever heard of Atlas Seaboard.
Yeah, I watch a YouTube channel, it's called, Rouse Retro Comics. I don't know if you watch him or not.
I don't, I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he just kinda sits in his room and, like, he just talks about whatever is on his mind. Well, he just did one, I guess it's maybe like a week ago about a DC, horror/war slash war
Oh, Weird
master
War Tales.
Weird War Tales,
I
and he
do,
went on and on about that.
I do know who you're talking about. I didn't realize that was the name of the channel. Yes, because
Yeah,
as
he's
soon
so
as
good, though.
yeah, because as soon as I saw the video, I was like, "I've gotta watch this." Because yeah, Weird War Tales, well, all those Bronze Age horror and war comics I love. I've mentioned that here on the channel before, or on the podcast before, is I love one of my favorite comics of all time when I was growing up and as an adult is GI Combat. And the main feature in every issue of GI Combat was the haunted tank. It is literally a tank in World War II. It starts off, they're in a Stuart light tank, and they're literally haunted by the ghost of the Confederate General Jeb Stuart because he's and as a kid, I don't ask many questions like, "Why are you being assigned to protect this tank?" Just because it's the name of the tank is named after you. Don't ask too many questions, just go along with it. Um, and so Jeb Stuart is kind of the protector of this tank crew during World War II as they go through. Of course, they're in every battlefront of the war over the time. And one of my favorite issues that I remember is in one issue, they had actually at some point gotten upgraded from a Stuart light tank to a Sherman medium tank. And during during this story, the ghost of General Sherman comes saying basically to relieve Stewart of duty because now he's going to be protecting this tank crew of the haunted tank. And of course, they do not paint um, Sherman in a good light at all. Like he is just ruthless. The one scene I remember especially is that at one point the haunted tank is faced with a dilemma where they are gonna shell this German ammunition train or something, but there are civilians in the way. And of course, Sherman's just like, "Oh, just do it." Like I can envision now is Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. Do it. That's just what he comes across as in that comic. And of course, they won't do it. They're like, "Oh, we can't fire on civilians." And so Sherman, even though they're in a Sherman tank, Sherman gets recalled to heaven or wherever he is, and Stewart continues to be their guide or their protector. So it's really just a weird, interesting little comic. It's this ongoing ghost story where this tank crew is being haunted by a Confederate general's ghost. And haunted in a way that he's their protector. He's not Scooby Doo haunting them. He's like actually protecting them. So, I loved Jow Combat growing up. Most issues, especially during the late 70s, they became the dollar giants. So not only would you get a brand new haunted tank story at the beginning, you usually get reprints of Sergeant Rock, occasionally reprints of Weird War Tales, and stuff in those issues because they were all like 80 pages, 80 to 100 pages at the time. So still love all those books. And Weird War is one of those. Actually, DC, he didn't. I don't know if he mentioned this in his video. DC also did a run of weird sports tales too, which was a. I don't think it wasn't as successful as the Weird War Tales, but it was sports stories, and they always had, like, a Twilight Zone, like, horror twist to them, too, and that would be an interesting. I don't think I have any of those, but now that we're talking about it, that would probably be one I would add to my list of something to look up.
Yeah, I think it would be fun to collect some of this. Yeah, I really enjoy his channel, his content. It's nothing major. He just kinda picks a book, gives you a little bit of history, some
Yep, yep.
shows you some art, and lets you go from there, lets you make up your mind, "Do I wanna get into this or not?"
Yeah, well, that's kind of right now, I'm kind of on a kick with, Still Only 35 Cents, which he's a British comic collector, and I've been enjoying watching his videos just for the fact that it's really interesting to me to see this hobby that I have loved so long and loved so much from the perspective of someone like of course, I'm gonna be a American comic centric because that's I grew up with American comics. I live in America. It's still very much to me an American hobby, but it's I love seeing it from the perspective of like the way that just the different ways they did different things with comics in the UK at the same time, because he's my age, he's roughly my age, so we would have been growing up roughly through at the same time. I think he might be slightly older than I am, but, um, a lot of the time period he's talking about, I can then actively remember what I was reading or what comics I was reading, and, it's fascinating to me just to see, um, how it was different, but how cool it also was.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at that. You have to, send me a link to his
Yeah,
videos or
yeah,
something.
he's the one I did send you the link a week or
Okay.
so ago. He's the one that was showing the giveaways that they used to do
Oh,
in
yeah,
British
okay, I
comics.
think I just watched
Yeah.
that, I don't think I subscribed to that, so I'll have to
Yeah,
go back
yeah,
and do
you
that.
should check out some of his other videos, just interesting storylines. A lot of the storylines he's talking about when he's reviewing comics, a lot of them start off maybe as reprints of American comics, especially if it was Marvel. But then they would start branching out into, like, local stories, like, he has a whole video about how Alan Moore basically reinvented Captain Britain in the '80s, and I'll be honest, it just sounds awesome. I'm like, I need to find out, did they ever print these in the US? 'Cause I know
Yeah.
Captain Britain became a big deal in US Comics during the height of the popularity of the X books during the '80s, because they did a book called Excalibur, which was a Britain-based mutant team, and Captain Britain was the leader of that team. Even though I'm not sure he was a mutant, I would need to go reinvestigate him a little more. because I was always wondering why he was like the leader of the Excalibur team. Kitty Pride became part of that team, along with I know Nightcrawler was a member of Excalibur for a while. And I always wondered why Captain Britain was kind of the head of this mutant team. I don't really remember what the justification was for it. I'd have to go back and read the comics
I
because
mean,
he
are they
he
all from overseas, like, at different
w
places?
well, again, Kitty Pryde's American, but she did end up over in the UK. Most of the team, at least initially, were British. Now, Kurt, uh Wagner, Nightcrawler, he's German,
Yeah,
so maybe it was became more of a European thing.
probably
But
so.
Captain Britain isn't a mutant. His powers are gained from Merlin, from magic, because he's essentially granted his powers, as a not as a descendant, but as he's not a direct descendant of King Arthur per se, but his powers are, like, I think magically originated from Merlin.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, he's in the video game that I play. I'm trying to get that to come up to see if it says anything about any of that at all, but, yeah,
well,
I'll have to.
Alan Davis and Alan Moore, Alan Davis was the artist during Alan Moore's run. They are the ones who redesigned his costume to, I guess, I think it's still kinda his costume. It's like a bodysuit with the Union Jack across the chest, and he's kinda got like a helmet cowl. It's not just a cowl, it's like a helmet. I still think that's the definitive look of Captain Britain. I have the Marvel Legends has done that version a couple of times. I do like the original Captain Britain who had a magic staff, but his costume was more like a costume than a uniform. Uh, I like both of them. I think I have the Marvel Legend for both of them, but, that Captain Britain and that's probably the one you're playing in your video game. He that to me is still the definitive look of Captain Britain.
Oh, yeah, he's even part of the Illuminati on the game that I play.
Oh, he is? I didn't know that. I
He's
don't
one
know
of
if
the. Yeah, that's mostly. I mean, he's in on some other teams, but he's mostly a part of the Illuminati.
Yeah, he's a cool character. I do like the tie-in and the link to Merlin, and the Arthurian legends, that reminds me, and talking about an obscure comic, a good friend of mine, Mike Heckman, recently picked up a run of Camelot 3000 from DC, which was also written by Alan Moore, I believe. Might need to double check. I believe it was written by Alan Moore with art by Brian Bolland and some different really great artists from the time. That also is like it's like a modern or a futuristic sci-fi take of the Arthurian legends. It's not like a reboot or reimagining. I think it literally takes place in the future, when because it was always said in the legends that King Arthur would return when Britain needed him most. And so it's kind of this thing set in a futuristic setting, but it has Merlin reawakening and there's magic, technology, all of that. And it was run as like a 12 issue limited series from DC in the early '80s, and Mike recently picked that up, I believe, at McKay's, but he ended up finding a whole run of it for a good price, and he's been reading it, and we've been kinda talking about he's really enjoyed it, and I told him, I said, "I need to dig out the trade." I don't think I have the issues, but I know I have the trade paperback, and I need to reread that. Uh, Maybe we could have a guest on the podcast one night. I'll make sure you get a copy, and we'll all read it and then kinda discuss it.
No, I mean, I think having people on and having some different perspectives and having people talk about what they're super passionate about. I mean, that's what this is all about. I mean, not everybody's going to be into the exact same things that we are, and just having to hear about something else. I mean,
Mhm.
I had never watched Space 1999 until we started doing this, and I don't even know if that would have ever happened. And so I'm kind of glad that I've been able to see that
I'm
and makes
pretty
me
sure I
appreciate
wouldn't
some
have
things
watched The
more.
Kindred, if you hadn't shown it to me.
I mean, it would have
Although,
never
yeah,
showed
I
up.
am looking forward to, we need to do our follow-up episodes on both of those and finish those off, but I am excited. I know we've discussed it. I definitely would love to do a retrospective on Forever Night because I enjoyed that show when it was on originally, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this whole vampire detective kinda, storyline really kind of appeals to me." That'd be kinda cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That was a cool show. I saw it at, McKay's the other day. I think it was like $8 for the entire series
Oh, nice. See, perfect, perfect.
on DVD. So, yeah, we'll be able to pick that up for cheap.
So there are there any obscure comics you wanted to talk about, or
I mean, no, I mean, like, I think for me, I mean, I loved comics, but one of the things that really got me, like, I know when the Visionaries action figures came out and the Visionaries cartoon came out, there was a Visionaries comic book. So
Mhm.
obviously I picked that up and that was one that I had written down. So I mean, anything that if it tied in with my toys always became something that I probably would have picked up a little faster than not. I would have never bought the Chuck Norris, and the
Yeah.
Karate Commandos comics, but I had all the action figures, so it was neat to see, action figures that were kinda highlighted in the comics, and you learn more backstory, so the figures actually mean a little bit more to you when you're a kid.
Yeah, I think, G.I. Joe and Transformers are the 2 big success stories of comic book, toy tie-ins. Marvel did both of those, and they both ran for really long times through the '80s into the '90s, well into the '90s. DC didn't have as much success with tie-ins. They tried quite a few, but, um DC did have a pretty long running success with Masters of the Universe. They published a line of comics based on that. There's even an issue of DC Comics Presents where Superman teams up with He-Man. There's like a DC Masters of the Universe crossover. I would love to find that issue. It's just very expensive. So that's why I don't have that. But so there were a lot of cool, tie-ins. Another big one for Marvel that was successful that I actually did read and enjoy was Micronauts, which was a toy line from Mego in the '70s, late '70s. I think it might have made it into the '80s, but not for very long. It was a relatively short-lived, toy line, but the comic book for Marvel ran from certainly the late '70s that through the mid '80s. So the I think in a lot of ways, the comic tie-in was more successful than the toys.
I mean, those were cool toys. I like we've talked about that, I think, when we were heading down to the Comic-Con. Like, I like the magnetic,
Mhm.
arms and legs. I thought that was really neat.
That was a neat
Um,
gimmick, yeah.
yeah, I think they were great, and I hate that, I don't know what they could have done to make those toys better to
I
have
think
lasted longer.
I think the big thing that killed that toy line is they were just too expensive at the time.
Okay.
They were because they were, mostly metal. I mean, there were some plastic parts, like, I think if I'm especially on the regular size, like, Baron Karza's or I know the villain was called Baron something, and he was a bigger figure, like, he was oversized, and I wanna say he was completely die cast with the metal ball joints for the and because you could remove his legs, and they released a horse figure that where you could actually combine you could mix and match the figures. But even the smaller figures, I believe, had the magnetic thing, even though I don't believe the entire bodies were necessarily die cast or metal. I'm sure the heads were mostly plastic. Um, but I know that when I've watched, Secret Galaxy did a whole video about the history of the Micronauts, and I wanna say that, all in all, they were actually kinda popular. They were just the kids liked them. It wasn't that kids didn't like them. They were just parents kinda balked at the price because for what toys were selling for at that period in the '70s, these, I think, probably cost like a regular size Micronauts figure, if I remember that video correctly, they retailed for like a 5 or $6 when most action figures of that time were 2, $3. And so I think just the cost of making them, just they weren't able to offer them at a good enough price, I don't think,
Yeah,
to
I
make
would have
them
a
a
hard time
long-term
convincing my
success.
parents to buy me something that was
Yeah.
more expensive when other things were right there beside it that were much less
Right,
expensive.
right. Yeah, 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 that was definitely would have had to wait to be a Christmas toy or something like that, and, and then the other thing I think that probably killed Micronauts was, let's just be blunt, Star Wars. Star Wars hit and,
Well, yeah.
just, like, leveled the toy playing field for a while.
And I mean, yeah, that's and I mean, it still has an effect,
Oh, yeah.
on toys. I mean, you know, I think people look at that as the standard, and I think for a long time, toys were made the same size.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
what was
they
it?
they
He-Man
definitely
was finally came along, was like, "I'm gonna make something a little bit bigger."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I don't know, the Mego toys were before that though, right? They were before
The
Star
Mego
Wars.
toys were the 8-inch and 12-inch Migos figures ran from the early '70s through to the late '70s. Mego started transitioning to 3 and 3/4 inch figures with the Star Trek movie.
Okay,
Although I shouldn't say that. Micronauts may have come out before that, and I believe those were 3 and 3/4. The regular figures, I believe, were 3 and 3/4. So Micronauts might have been Mego's first foray into 3 and 3/4 inch. I
okay.
know that Star Trek was the big one because they had been burned because they passed on the Star Wars license. They were
Man,
actually Mego was offered the Star Wars license before Kenner, and because they had such a long history doing, superhero sci-fi toys and stuff, and, they passed on it, and then Star Trek: The Motion Picture, for as much as I love that movie, just was not as big a hit as Star Wars was, especially as a toy line.
yeah,
Although I'd love to have those Mego, like, they did a Mego bridge set, the Mego, 3 and 3/4 inch figures, those are now super pricey on the card. They're, like, in line with the Battlestar Galactica figures.
yeah, that's expensive.
Yeah.
I love the Mego Pocket Heroes. I think those are great. But
Yeah,
there was just something about the bigger Migos, especially like
yeah.
Spider-Man and Batman and all of them with the actual
Oh,
clothes.
yeah.
I
My
think that
en
just makes those very special.
yeah, my entire early childhood, those were the go-to gifts for Christmas, Easter, birthdays, everything was, um, I would always get some Migos. I remember having some really cool ones too. Like, of course, I had Batman and Superman and Robin and that, but I also ended up with Thor, Captain America, Conan the Barbarian. God, I wish I still had that Conan the Barbarian. Um, and Conan the Barbarian was cool because I made him fight Thor all the time. Because
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but no, and of course, I had a bunch of different Spider-Man over the years. That was the only thing. The Spider-Man was cool because his webbing was dyed, was actually silk screened into the cloth, so you couldn't lose it. And they did that with Captain America. I want to say Captain America. I can't remember. I think the star might have been silk screened into his costume, but with Superman, Batman, and Robin, especially,
Those stupid stickers.
there were stickers, and
Yeah,
they fell off the first time you played with 'em.
yeah,
Before the first session of play is over, you've lost the logo off the
yeah,
chest.
yeah, but they're so cool.
Oh, they
you
are.
know, that's not something that I go out and I look for. I would love to have them. Usually when I do see them, they're just so
Mhm.
overpriced. I know when I went out that one day, um, I just kind of ran out because I got this weird message on Facebook and I went and grabbed that lunchbox from that place, right below your apartment. But then I came back and I had those two Migos for you. Like, if I can get them for that price, I would love to buy more of those, especially if I
Oh,
could get the
I had some of
superheroes.
the Star Trek Migos too. Yeah, you got
Yeah,
me the Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, and that was another one where their Delta symbol was also a sticker, and
yeah.
those are gone, you know. Um, I do know that over the years, and with 3D printing now, I'm surprised I haven't seen more of it. I do know that there was someone on Etsy selling little 3D printed deltas, really tiny,
Oh, wow.
that you could,
That's cool.
it had like a little magnet on the
Yeah.
back side, so you could for your Migos. They were being printed for Migos so
Man.
that you could put them on your Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, and I like, that is such a cool idea. If I would love to see somebody do that with the bat symbol, the Superman symbol, and all that with the magnetic backing so that you could just put it on your Mego figure. Wouldn't mess up the cloth or destroy the cloth or anything, but it would be more permanent.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. That would be definitely something that would
Well,
be fun
because
to pick
half of
up.
the time, even if you find a Mego still in the box, the sticker is at the bottom of the box because the glue gave out,
Oh, I know, yeah. Like,
decades ago.
and it's crazy how quickly those things fell off.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, but we didn't think
Yeah,
anything about that.
actually, I remember, I remember as a kid, and I may have told this story, so bear with me. My I had lost the Superman uh shield off of my Mega Superman, and at that time on the DC Superman comics, they had a banner head across the top that had, other characters that might appear in backup stories, but in the very middle of it was the Superman shield. It was just perfect because it was kinda by itself. So, I literally took a pair of scissors and cut that out of the cover of one of my comic books and took, uh, Scotch tape, rolled it up, and stuck it to him, and now that horrifies me. I'm like, "I literally cut up a comic book cover to
Yeah, but
get
if you
that
still have
Superman
that
shield."
Mego with the rolled up tape sticking to his chest
I
would be
and
so awesome.
unfortunately, I do not
Yeah,
have that,
that would
yeah.
be cool to have. That would
Yeah.
be definitely cool to
But,
have.
yeah, I literally cut the and, you could make double-sided tape by taking a piece of Scotch tape and rolling it up
Yeah,
and flattening it out, and I used that, and it stayed on pretty good. I wanna say that was still on for a long time.
that's really cool. Well, man, we have hit our hour.
Yeah.
I that's crazy. How were that? I don't even know how that happened. That feels like it's been 5 minutes to me. So I guess just in, keeping to our time, we'll say thank you so much to those that are listening. Make sure you're liking and following and
Yep.
spreading the good news of the retro cult out there.
Yeah,
And
and for any of you listening, we did find out we are on, Apple Podcasts now too.
yeah,
So, if you are, you clearly, if you're listening to us on something other than Apple Podcasts, but have friends that you think might like us that are using Apple Podcasts, let them know. I'll probably make a post on YouTube letting people know we're on Apple Podcasts
that
too.
sounds good, man.
So, because that's exciting, anything to expand the reach of the channel. I feel like the podcast is gaining traction every week.
It does. Seems like some people are listening. I would really love it if they would just hit us up with some comments and
Yep,
let us know what they want to hear because I'm happy to talk just about anything that's old and retro and that brings up that feel of nostalgia because that's what it's all about.
I agree.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna hit stop recording. I'm sure we'll chat a little bit after that. But again, thank you to all yous, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, everybody.